My fiancé spent my birthday night at her ex's. Drama? You're overreacting. Trust me, you'd get it, okay? I stayed quiet. Then she saw what I took from the drawer. What if the person you believed was your forever, the one you were ready to build a life with, was meticulously building a lie right under your nose? The truth, when it finally hit me, wasn't whispered, it was screamed by a tiny, black velvet box I pulled from my drawer. The air in that apartment that day felt thick, heavy with unspoken questions. I was packing, trying to make sense of the wreckage, and Chloe stood in the doorway, her eyes scanning me, desperate to understand why I wasn't yelling, why I wasn't demanding answers. She wanted an explanation, but I had none to give. Not yet. I'd spent 6 months, picking out that ring, saved up for almost a year before that. I had this whole perfect plan about proposing on our trip to the coast next month. I slipped the box into my pocket without a word. I watched the color drain from Chloe's face. She knew. Finally, she knew. But let me back up, because you need to understand how I got to that moment. How someone goes from planning a proposal to walking out with everything they own packed into 2 suitcases. It started the night before, on my birthday. My own birthday, for crying out loud. I'd taken the day off work, cleaned the whole apartment top to bottom, even bought flowers for the table because Chloe loved that kind of thing. Dinner was ready, nothing fancy, just the Italian place we always went to, the one where they knew our order before we even sat down. She came home around 6 o'clock, and I could tell immediately something was off. She had that look. The one where she's already made a decision and she's just figuring out how to sell it to you. She didn't even sit down, still clutching her purse like she was ready to bolt. She just blurted out that she had to leave. Not can I, not do you mind, but had to. To see him. Liam. My hand, holding a fork, just froze midair. I asked, who, even though my gut screamed his name before she ever said it. Liam. Her ex. She rattled off an excuse, a script she must have rehearsed. His dad's in the hospital, he's really struggling, having a panic attack. I need to go make sure he's okay. The fork in my hand felt impossibly heavy. I reminded her, gently, it's my birthday, Chloe. She said she knew, she apologized, but then that line hit me, that gut punch, he doesn't have anyone else. Doesn't have anyone else? Like I wasn't standing right there. Like our plans didn't matter. I asked how long she'd be gone. Just a couple hours. I'll be back before 10 o'clock. We can still have cake. She kissed me on the cheek and left. I heard her car pull out of the parking lot. I sat down at that table, 2 plates of pasta getting cold, the flowers mocking me. And I waited. 10 o'clock came and went. I called her. No answer. I texted. Nothing. I called again at 11 o'clock, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. Every single call went straight to voicemail after the 3rd ring. I knew what that meant. She was declining them. I just didn't want to believe it. I stayed up all night on the couch, watching the door, making up every excuse I could think of. Maybe her phone died. Maybe the hospital had bad reception. Maybe she lost track of time. Because the alternative, the truth, was just too much to handle. She walked in at 7 o'clock the next morning. I was still on the couch, stiff and exhausted. She looked tired, yeah, but not upset, not guilty. Annoyed, if anything, that I was still awake. She dropped her keys on the counter and mumbled, "Hey." Apologized that it took longer than she thought. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. She started making coffee like nothing had happened. She explained Liam's dad was stable now, that he'd been really scared, and she couldn't just leave him alone like that. I finally found my voice. You didn't answer your phone. She said she knew. My battery died. Left my charger here. Figured you'd understand. Figured I'd understand. Those 3 words hit me harder than any punch. She figured I'd understand that she spent my birthday night with her ex? Figured I'd be fine with it? Figured I'd just accept whatever explanation she gave me because I always did. I asked her where she'd been. At his place. He couldn't be alone. He was really depressed. I made myself say it out loud then, made it real. You stayed the night. She told me he needed someone, then added the kicker, the perfect little twist, you'd understand if you trusted me. There it was. Suddenly, I was the problem. I was the one who didn't trust her. I was the one making it weird. She perfected this move over the past year. This thing where she'd do something that clearly crossed a line, then act like I was unreasonable for noticing. I stood up. My legs felt weak. I hadn't eaten since lunch the day before. I reminded her she'd told me she'd be back by 10 o'clock. She rolled her eyes. Actually rolled her eyes. Plans change, Alex. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. He was having a crisis. What was I supposed to do? I suggested she could have called me back, answered her phone, come home. I'm being dramatic, she scoffed. Nothing happened. We just talked. He was upset, and I was there for him as a friend. That's what decent people do. Decent people. I walked past her into the bedroom. She followed me, asking where I was going. I didn't answer. I pulled my suitcase out from under the bed and started filling it with clothes. My hands were shaking, but I kept moving, kept packing. Because if I stopped, I'd have to think about what I was doing, and I couldn't afford to think. She asked what I was doing. Her voice changed now, the annoyed tone gone, replaced with something nervous. She told me to talk to her, asked why I was packing. I opened my drawer to grab socks, and there it was. The ring box. Small, black velvet, sitting right there where I'd hidden it 3 weeks ago. I'd been looking at it every morning, imagining her reaction, playing out the proposal in my head. I picked it up. Slid it into my pocket. Chloe saw it. I watched her face drain, watched the color disappear completely. She whispered, "Is that what I think it is?" I closed the suitcase. She demanded I answer her. "Is that a ring, Alex?" I picked up my second suitcase and started filling it. Her voice cracked, a choked gasp. "Oh my God, you were going to propose." She sounded utterly devastated. Not for me. For the future she was losing. She asked when, demanded to know when I was planning to do it. I moved past her to the closet, grabbing my jackets, my shoes, anything I could fit. She kept saying to say something, begging, please. I zipped both suitcases closed and stood up. She was crying now. Real tears, I think. Not the manipulative kind she'd used before. When I'd caught her texting Liam late at night, when I'd seen his name pop up on her phone during dinner, during movies, during every moment we were supposed to be together. She said I couldn't leave, that we could fix this, she'd stop talking to him, promised. She pulled out her phone, showed me Liam's contact, said, "Look, I'll delete everything right now. Please just give me a chance." Her hands were shaking as she held up the screen. I didn't even glance at it. I'd seen this performance too many times. The dramatic gestures, the promises that lasted exactly as long as it took for me to calm down. She tried to block the door, talking about Liam's struggles, his dad possibly dying, about how she was just being a good person. My voice came out flat. Empty. Dead. Move. She refused. Not until you talk to me. Not until you understand. I looked at her, really looked at her, maybe for the first time in months. I'd been so busy trying to make everything work, trying to be understanding, trying to be the kind of partner who didn't get jealous or insecure. I'd stopped seeing what was right in front of me. She didn't look guilty. She looked frustrated that I wasn't playing along anymore. I said it again, just that one word, move. She stepped aside. I think she finally realized that something had broken, something that couldn't be fixed with tears or promises or making me feel like I was overreacting. I carried both suitcases to my car. She followed me down to the parking lot, still talking, still explaining, her voice getting higher and more desperate with every step. I loaded everything into my trunk. She grabbed my arm, asking where I was going to go. I got in my car. She said I couldn't just leave, that we lived together. We had plans. We were going to get married. I closed the door, started the engine. She was standing in front of my car now, hands on the hood. I put it in reverse instead, backed out slowly until she had to move. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror and saw her standing there in the parking lot, phone already in her hand. I knew who she was calling. I'd always known. I just hadn't been ready to admit it until I saw that ring box and realized I'd been about to promise forever to someone who couldn't even give me one honest night. Notice how she made him question his own reality. That's manipulation 101. I drove to my brother, Ryan's, place. He opened the door, took one look at my face, and stepped aside without asking questions. I dropped my suitcases in his guest room and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. My phone was blowing up. Texts, calls, voicemails. I turned it off. Ryan brought me coffee and toast around noon. I hadn't realized how much time had passed. He asked if I wanted to talk about it. I shook my head. He nodded and left the room. That's when it hit me, really hit me, that I had just walked away from 3 years of my life. 3 years of building something, or at least thinking I was building something. I pulled out the ring box from my pocket and opened it. The diamond caught the light from the window. I picked it out so carefully, made sure it was exactly her style, classic, but with a little twist, just like she always said she wanted. I snapped the box shut and put it in the nightstand drawer. My phone stayed off for 2 days. I knew what was waiting for me when I turned it back on. The excuses, the explanations, the tears, the promises. I'd heard them all before, just never quite like this. But on the 3rd day, I needed to check my work emails. Had a project deadline coming up, so I powered it on. 63 text messages. 22 missed calls. 14 voicemails. I didn't read them. Not yet. I opened my laptop instead. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe I was looking for proof that I was wrong, that I'd overreacted, that there was some explanation that would make everything make sense again. Or maybe I already knew what I'd find, and I just needed to see it with my own eyes. Chloe had always kept her tablet plugged in by the bed, one of those things she never took anywhere, just used it for reading before sleep. We bought matching ones last year, synced them to the same cloud account for shared photos, grocery lists, calendar events. I'd never looked at her messages before, never had a reason to. Trusted her completely. That word felt like a joke now. I logged into the cloud and opened her message app. The first conversation I saw was labeled with her sister's name. I almost scrolled past it. Then I noticed the message preview didn't sound like her sister at all. I clicked on it. It wasn't her sister. She'd renamed his contact. Hidden it in plain sight. I scrolled to the top, to the very beginning of the conversation. It started 8 months ago, 2 months after I'd started saving for the ring. The messages were casual at first. How are you doing? Hope you're well. Just checking in. Then they got more frequent. Daily, multiple times a day. Then they changed. I'm thinking about you. I miss you. Remember when we used to? I kept scrolling. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the laptop. There were messages from my birthday. From the night she'd spent with him. He doesn't suspect anything. He never does. That was her, sent at midnight, while I was calling her phone over and over. His response came a minute later. Something about how I was too trusting, how that made things easier. She sent a laughing emoji. I scrolled further. Found messages from our anniversary dinner last month. She'd excused herself to use the bathroom 3 times that night. I remembered thinking she might be sick. She wasn't sick. She was texting him, telling him she wished she was with him instead, telling him the restaurant was nice, but she'd rather be at their spot. Their spot. They had a spot. I kept reading. There were messages from the week I picked up the ring. I'd been so excited, could barely keep it a secret, kept almost telling her a dozen times. She'd noticed something was up, asked if everything was okay. I'd said everything was perfect. That same night, she'd messaged him about how I seemed happy lately. How that made her feel guilty, but not guilty enough to stop. Not guilty enough to stop. I found photos. Not the kind you'd expect, though there were some of those, too. But mostly just regular photos. Them at coffee shops. Them on hikes. Them at the beach. The beach we'd talked about going to for months but never made it to because she said she was too busy with work. She wasn't too busy. She was going with him. There was a photo from 3 weeks ago. Her hand held up to the camera, showing off her nails. New manicure, she told me. Treated herself. In the background of the photo, barely visible, was a hotel room. I zoomed in. Could make out the edge of a bed, a lamp, a painting on the wall. I recognized that painting. I'd seen it before, when I'd suggested that boutique hotel downtown. WN for our anniversary. She'd said it was too expensive, not worth it. But there it was, in the background of her photo. I checked our credit card statements. Found the charge. She'd put it on our shared card. I'd paid for half of her hotel room with him. I slammed the laptop shut. Stood up, sat back down. My brother Ryan knocked on the door, asking if I was okay. I wasn't okay. I was the furthest thing from okay, but I told him I was fine. He didn't believe me, but he left anyway. I opened the laptop again. I had to know everything. Had to see the whole picture. The messages went back further than 8 months. I realized she'd deleted the earlier ones, but I could see references to them, inside jokes, callbacks to conversations that weren't in the thread anymore. They'd never really broken up. Or if they had, they'd gotten back together long before she met me. Maybe while she was with me. I found a message from a year ago. She'd sent him a photo of her engagement ring finger bare, with a caption about how it wouldn't stay that way forever, but she was enjoying her freedom while it lasted. Freedom. While she was living with me, while I was putting her name on the lease, while I was introducing her to my family as the person I was going to marry. There were messages about me. So many messages about me. How I was safe, how I was stable, how I was exactly what she needed for the future she wanted. But he was what she needed for everything else. He asked her once why she didn't just leave me. Her response was clinical. Cold. She said I had a good job, good credit, wanted the same thing she wanted. House, kids, suburban life. Liam didn't want those things. He wanted to travel, work odd jobs, live without plans. She wanted both. So, she was taking both. There was a message from 6 months ago, right after I told her I loved her family, loved how close we'd all gotten. She'd screenshotted my text and sent it to him with a comment about how easy I was to please, how I bought into the whole thing without question. He'd responded asking if she ever felt bad. She said sometimes, but not enough to change anything. Not enough to change anything. I found messages from last month, from the night we'd gone to see her parents for dinner. Her mom had pulled me aside, told me how happy she was that her daughter had found someone like me, someone solid, someone who'd take care of her. I'd felt so proud, so honored. That night after we got home, after I'd fallen asleep, she'd messaged him about how suffocating it all felt. How she couldn't wait to see him, how she needed a break from playing house. Playing house. That's what I was to her. A game. A role she performed. I scrolled to the most recent messages. From 2 days ago. The morning after I'd left. She told him about the ring, that I'd found it, that I'd walked out, that everything was falling apart. He'd asked what she was going to do. She'd said she needed to fix it. Get me back. At least until things were more settled. At least until things were more settled. Not because she loved me. Not because she was sorry. Because the timing wasn't right yet. I kept reading. There was another message from later that same day. Your ring looked so beautiful on my hand when we tried it on. Wish you'd been the one giving it to me. My ring. The ring I'd spent a year saving for. She'd shown it to him. Let him see it. Probably laughed about it. I understood then. She wasn't sorry she'd hurt me. She was sorry she'd gotten caught before she was ready. Before the house was bought, before the wedding was planned, before I was locked in completely. I was an investment. A retirement plan. Something to fall back on. When the excitement wore off. I closed the laptop, grabbed my phone, scrolled through her messages without reading them. They all said the same thing anyway. Different words, same meaning. Come back, let me explain. You're overreacting. Nothing happened. I love you. We can work through this. But I'd seen the truth. I'd read it in her own words. And I knew exactly what I had to do next. Sometimes the truth isn't in what people say to your face. It's in what they write when they think you'll never see it. I spent the next week at Ryan's place planning everything out. Not in anger, not in revenge, just in cold, practical steps. I made a list. Called my landlord first, explained the situation without drama. Told him I needed to break the lease early or find a way to get her off it. He was understanding. Said if we both agreed, he could draw up new paperwork or I could find someone to take over my half. I thanked him and hung up. Cancelled the coast trip, got a partial refund. Separated our phone plan. Changed my passwords, bank accounts, streaming services, everything. Removed her access to my credit card. Every shared thing we had. I quietly untangled. Ryan watched me work through the list and asked if I was doing okay. I told him I was fine. He said I seemed too calm. Maybe I was. Or maybe I'd already done all my processing in that guest room, staring at her messages. Maybe there was nothing left to feel. On the 8th day, I went back to the apartment. My apartment now, at least for the next few weeks, until I figured out the lease situation. I texted her the day before, told her I'd be coming by at 2 o'clock. Asked her to be there. She responded immediately. Said she'd be there, asked if we could talk. I didn't respond. She was waiting when I arrived, sitting on the couch, our couch, looking small and scared. She'd been crying. I could tell her eyes were red. She stood up when I walked in. Started to say something. I held up my hand, pulled out my laptop, set it on the coffee table. Opened it to her messages, the ones I'd screenshotted, saved, organized. I turned the screen toward her. I read everything. Her face changed. Went from hope to panic in less than a second. She looked at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I watched her scroll through the screenshots, watched her realize how much I knew, how long I'd known. She tried to close the laptop. I didn't stop her. Didn't matter. I'd already seen it all. She started talking fast. Said it wasn't what it looked like. The messages were taken out of context. She was venting. She didn't mean any of it. People say things they don't mean when they're confused. I let her finish. Then I told her. I've already talked to the landlord. We're breaking the lease. You need to figure out where you're going because I'm not staying here either. She said we didn't have to do that. We could work this out. Keep the apartment. Start over. I told her, there's no starting over, Chloe. The landlord is waiting for us to decide who's leaving and who's staying, or if we're both walking away. You can have the place if you want it and can afford it. She switched tactics. We could go to counseling. Work through this. Couples therapy. I'd do anything. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. I asked her, why, Chloe? Just why? If you wanted him, if you loved him, why didn't you just leave? Why drag me into it? Why let me buy a ring? Why let me plan a future? She didn't have an answer at first. Then she said something about being scared, about not knowing what she wanted, about thinking she could have both. I told her, you couldn't. You never could. She asked about the ring, if I still had it. I said I did. She asked if there was any chance, any possibility that we could start over, that I could forgive this. I looked at her, really looked at her, saw her the way I should have seen her months ago. Someone who'd made a choice every single day to lie to me. Every text. Every late night. Every time she came home and kissed me like nothing was wrong. Those were all choices. No, that was all I said. Just no. She started crying harder. Real tears this time, I think. Not because she was sorry. Because she was losing something she'd wanted to keep. The safety net. The backup plan. She asked where she was supposed to go. I suggested Liam's place. Since she spends so much time there anyway. That made her angry. She said I was being cruel. I almost laughed. Cruel. I'd been sleeping next to her for months while she counted down the days until I'd propose, until she'd have everything locked down, until she could stop pretending so hard. And I was being cruel? She tried a different approach. Said her family loved me, asked what I was going to tell them. I said I'd tell them the truth if they asked, but I wasn't going to broadcast it. That was between her and them. She looked relieved for a second, then scared again. Asked what I meant by if they asked. I told her I'd already started getting messages from mutual friends. Word was spreading. Not from me, but from someone. Maybe someone from his circle. Maybe someone had seen them together. Maybe she'd confided in the wrong person. Didn't matter. People were starting to ask questions. Her perfect image was cracking. She begged me not to show anyone the messages. It would ruin me. I closed my laptop and put it back in my bag. Told her I wasn't going to show anyone anything. I didn't need to. She'd done this to herself. I grabbed the last few things I'd left at the apartment. My books. Some photos. My coffee maker. She followed me around asking what she was supposed to do now, how she was supposed to fix this. I told her that wasn't my problem anymore. She grabbed my arm at the door. I heard her this time, desperate. Asked if I hated her. I pulled my arm away gently. Told her I didn't hate her. I just didn't trust her. And without trust, there was nothing left to save. She asked if I'd ever loved her. That question sat heavy between us. I had loved her, or I'd loved who I thought she was, the version she'd shown me. The one who wanted the same future I wanted. But that person didn't exist. Never had. I told her I loved someone who wasn't real. She said she was real. I said, no. You were just good at pretending. I left. She didn't follow me this time. I drove back to Ryan's place and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just empty. Ryan asked how it went. I said it was done. He asked if I wanted to talk about it. I said no. We ordered pizza and watched a game on TV and didn't mention her once. Over the next few weeks, things settled into a strange new normal. Chloe ended up keeping the apartment. Said she'd get a roommate to help with rent. I moved into a smaller place across town, 1 bedroom, cheaper rent, closer to work. Didn't need the space anymore. Fresh start. Sold the ring back to the jeweler. Got about 60% of what I'd paid. Used the money for new furniture. Started taking evening walks around my new neighborhood. Nothing intense, just walking, listening to podcasts, clearing my head. Ryan suggested I try meeting new people when I was ready. I told him I wasn't there yet. He said that was fine, but when I was ready, he knew some people. I appreciated that he didn't push. Her texts eventually stopped. Took about 3 weeks. The first week was constant apologies, explanations, promises. Second week was anger, accusations that I'd given up too easily, that I never really loved her, that I was cold and unforgiving. Third week was bargaining again. Final desperate attempts at fixing something that couldn't be fixed. Then silence. I heard through mutual friends that she'd moved in with Liam. The ex. Her real choice. Someone told me they'd seen them at a bar together, that she seemed happy. I didn't ask for details. Didn't want them. Another friend mentioned she'd been telling people I'd left her without explanation, that I'd just walked out one day over nothing. I didn't correct the story. Let her have whatever narrative she needed. About 2 months after everything ended, I ran into her mom at the grocery store. She looked uncomfortable. Asked how I was doing. I said I was good. She said she was sorry things didn't work out. I told her I was sorry, too. She hesitated, then asked if her daughter had really done what she'd heard. I didn't answer directly, just said, sometimes people aren't who we think they are. She nodded slowly, said she'd always liked me, hoped I'd find someone who deserved me. I thanked her and moved on. That interaction sat with me for days. Her own mother had heard something, had pieced it together. The perfect image had completely shattered. I found myself thinking about the ring sometimes, about the proposal I'd planned. The speech I practiced in my head, the future I'd imagined. It felt like someone else's life now. Someone naive. Someone who believed too easily. But I didn't regret walking away. Not for a second. Not when I saw those messages. Not when I understood I was just a placeholder. A safe option while she kept her real life hidden. Because the moment I stopped forgiving, stopped making excuses, stopped trying to understand the incomprehensible, everything became clear. She thought I'd never leave because I always forgave, because I was safe, stable, predictable, easy. She'd thought wrong. And now she was living with her choice, and I was living with mine. The difference was I could sleep at night. Walking away isn't giving up. Sometimes, it's the only way to save yourself. This kind of betrayal, it changes you. I'm still piecing myself back together. If you've ever found yourself in a situation where someone made you question your own reality, what did you do? Do you think I was too cold, or did Chloe deserve exactly what she got? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm reading every single one.